Hersam Acorn newspapers, publishers of the Greenwich Post, New Canaan Advertiser, the Darien Times, the Ridgefield Press, the Weston Forum, the Wilton Bulletin, the Reading Pilot, the Lewisboro Ledger, the Monroe Courier, the Eastern Courier, the Trumbull Times, Fairfield Sun, Shelton Herald, the Stratford Star, the Milford Mirror, and the Valley Gazette.
Hersam, Acorn, and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a radio announcer. I'm a high school football coach. And since I was old enough to stand on the side of a stream next to my dad, I've been an angler. I've fished with bait, lures, and flies. I've fished with spinning gear, fly rods, jigging poles, and tip-ups. I've stood on ice, waded rapids, and been tossed about the deck of a boat. And I want you to love fishing, be it freshwater or salt, heavy flows, high seas, or cutting through a foot of ice, as much as I do, no matter what the quarry, no matter the tactics, no matter the chosen tackle. Welcome to Yankee Fisherman on HANradio.com. Welcome to Yankee Fisherman. John Kovach with you. It's just after 1 o'clock this Tuesday, April 30th, last day of April. Starting to see some spring weather, starting to see some blossoms on the trees outside of our Shelton studio. Got big fishing news. We've got a couple of great interviews with fly tyers. We've got big news from our presenting sponsor, the Dock Shop. But first, let's get to the late news of the day with Kate Chaplinsky.
Thanks, John. Well, a New Haven man was killed and 2 others were injured in a head-on crash early this morning on I-95 northbound in Branford. 69-year-old Peter Hall of New Haven was pronounced dead at the scene, according to state police. Hall was traveling the wrong way, southbound, in the northbound lanes of I-95 near exit 54 when he slammed into another vehicle. The other driver, 43-year-old Blair Kerr of Pierce Street in Bridgeport, suffered minor injuries, but the passenger in his 2010 Ford F-150 pickup truck, Frank Papa, 24 years old of Arizona, was seriously injured and was transported by ambulance to Yale New Haven Hospital. The crash occurred around 3:30 in the morning, and the northbound side of the highway was closed between exits 54 and 55 for nearly 3 hours. In other news, a stack of printed flyers with the message "White Lives Matter" has been found in a North Milford neighborhood, according to NBC Connecticut. The flyers found on Herbert Street in the upscale Great River neighborhood are a reference to the slogan "Black Lives Matter," used by groups responding to the police violence against young black men, and particularly incidents in Ferguson, Staten Island, North Charleston, South Carolina, and recently in Baltimore. The flyers found Tuesday make reference to recent riots, presumably in Baltimore, and urge people to visit the website of a self-proclaimed white nationalist organization based in Mississippi. Milford police say they are investigating the flyers. A 31-year-old man from Shelton is facing multiple charges after police spotted him there on Tuesday. Shelton detectives were on Perry Avenue when they observed Joel Bullock of 89 Walnut Tree Hill Road in Shelton exiting a vehicle. Bullock was wanted on 2 outstanding warrants, one for second-degree failure to appear and another warrant held by Derby police for 3 counts of failure to register as a sex offender. Bullock was searched and found to be in possession of narcotics not prescribed to him, according to police. He was additionally charged with illegal possession of narcotics. Bullock posted a $2,500 bond and is scheduled to appear in State Superior Court in Derby on May 12th for the charges. He was handed over to Derby police. Candy brought back from a school trip to China caused a bad reaction in some Weston students and teachers and is now being tested by the state forensics lab. The candy was ingested by 2 teachers and 9 students at Weston Middle School on Thursday, April 9th, according to Weston Police Chief John Troxell. He said it was his understanding that the candy caused a tingling sensation in the mouths of those who ate it. He said it is being now checked for toxicity. The results may not be in right away, but when they get in, police will let the public know. Weston School Superintendent Colleen Palmer alerted parents to the situation in an email last Thursday, saying candy acquired in China was brought to the middle school and students and staff members experienced some discomfort after ingesting it. As a precautionary measure, all individuals who consumed the candy were transported by ambulance to the hospital to be checked. Everyone was released from the hospital and cleared to go home after being examined. It is currently 59 degrees and sunny in Shelton. HAN News Time is 1:08.
Thanks, Kate. We have some news out of Hartford as well. This came out yesterday, and it's great news for everybody who listens to this show. If you spoke out, wrote letters, guests that we had that testified, but it appears, at least right now, that the Kensington hatchery is safe, the Council on Environmental Quality is safe, and park funding is safe. Let me just run this down, and this is from the Rivers Alliance. Let's see, where are we here? So the budget returns full funding to the Council on Environmental Quality and states that it remains an independent agency. It is not transferred from the executive branch to the legislative branch. It remains its own entity. Then the Appropriations Committee, positions in the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Governor Malloy had proposed reducing from 669 to 642. The Appropriations Committee recommends 684. Conservation Districts funding. The Appropriations Committee recommends $270,000. That is down from $285,000, but up from the nothing proposed by Governor Malloy. There is nothing on the U.S. Geological Survey stream gauges. Budget lines were eliminated 2 years ago. DEEP is expected to use general administrative funds to support those. There is a reduction of $100,000 in the Connecticut State Parks budget, but Governor Malloy had proposed $2 million. So that's a significant restoration of funding there. The Department of Aquaculture is transferred from the Agricultural Department to the DEEP. Funding for the position of Invasive Plants Coordinator is suggested by the Appropriations Committee. This is the one that we've been watching. This is the one that put trout in the classroom in jeopardy, that jeopardized that program that helps thousands and thousands of kids all across this state. It restores the funding for the Kensington Fish Hatchery. Now we've got to get that bill that William Tong is proposing that protects it here on. We've got to get that through now, so we don't have to do this stupid dance every 2 years to save a hatchery that provides so much for so many. Funding for pheasant stocking also restored. Now, this is not finalized. The budget goes to the House and the Senate for a vote. June 3rd is adjournment. There will be negotiations. There will be changes. But this is good movement in our direction. So thank all of you who took the time to lobby, to write, to testify, to speak out, to talk to your legislators, because we made a difference here. And it's in programs that are important to us and important on passing on the angling tradition to the next generation. I was at a place 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago, that is also important in terms of passing on the angling tradition. That the Crossroads Angling Auction. It was in my hometown of Bud Lake, New Jersey. I talked to a number of people there. We have a number of segments coming up. I got to interview two gentlemen who tie flies, some of them rather realistic. Some have been used in television shows and commercials as props. Just real, I mean, you would think that they're alive, and you're going to see some of it. So first up is an interview, and it's fairly lengthy. I'll caution you from the outset, but it's a very interesting insight into somebody who's really had an impact on fly tying and who taught our second guest who will be coming up. So this is, let me just come back. And we've got Bob Mead. Bob Mead is ready. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is our interview with Bob Mead from the Crossroads Angling Auction. We're going to play that and then take a break and talk about some more things. You'll listen to Yankee Fisherman on HANradio.com, streaming on the Hersam Acorn Network.
Set a leg, but cement. But I'd like to use natural materials because it ties back into regular time.
Your flies, we were talking earlier, you're not just using these for fishing. Some of these are ending up as props.
Yes. I never meant to become a Franklin Mint type tire, but it just happened that way. At one time, I joined Trout Unlimited probably 35 years ago, and I noticed after taking the casting course at a school gymnasium that they had a fly raffle where you threw a fly in, you got a ticket, and somebody won all the flies. Might be a dozen, might be 2 dozen, depending on how many people threw a fly in. So I tied a grasshopper and threw it in, and I sat down. I only knew about 5 people out of the 60 there. And,
what do you think?
Well, the guy that was the president came over and picked it up, and he goes, "Who the heck tied this?" And I just kind of hesitantly raised my hand. Is something wrong with it? Me, He says, "No, you tie everything like this." I go, "Well, what do you mean everything? That's a grasshopper." And he says, "No, he mean real looking, because there wasn't even Realistics title then." I goes, "Well, yeah, I fish with that." He says, "You tie other flies like that? Can you give us a couple for our banquet?" Now, my step-grandmother and aunt ran a jewelry store, and I'd seen watches in little domes hanging. So I asked her if they could get me a little dome, and I went out in the woods and just cut a bare piece of old dead stick and glued it in and stuck 2 mayflies on it. And at our banquet auction, they got $110 for it. I couldn't believe it. I thought they were putting me on. I thought this was going to be a big joke on Bob Mead, but it was real. And because in Albany, New York, where the chapter that I belong to has a 600-member membership, other chapters would send a table of guys there. And that's how it started, where I went around to tie. And then one day, like I mentioned earlier, I was at the track, I saw that, and I suddenly became a realistic tire. And the word got around. I wrote a column in the mid-'80s for several years for Fly Tire magazines. I've never done my own book, but I've written chapters for several. And you've been around a long time when people ask you to write a forward for their book. That's why I've done 4 or 5 of those. One day I got a call from the prop office in Brooklyn for the TV show Royal Pains. And the woman said to me, at one time we had some bugs made and it was done by a fly tire, but we can't remember who it is, so I just started going through the alphabet. And the first one I called was Fran Betters up on the Ausable in New York. And Fran, a good friend, had just passed away. In fact, they spread his ashes on the Ausable. His widow said, "Well, Fran's gone, but the guy you want is Bob Mead." So she jumped right up, gave him my number, and called me. So I tied black widow spiders, yellow jackets, houseflies for Royal Pains, and then I've done some mosquitoes that I snipped the hook off of after I tied it, and they pasted 3 of them to a plastic bottle of a stop itch cream called Sarna. I was at a show one time, and one of the fellows from a destination booth in South America said to me, "What's new?" And I said, "Well, I just did these mosquitoes for this Sarna stuff." And he says, "Sarna?" He says, "You know what that means in Spanish?" And I said, "No, I don't speak Spanish." And he says, "Well, nobody speaks Spanish going to buy that stuff. That means scabs in your hair." So I said, "Well, I'd better let the photographer know, and whoever the advertising agency is, that if they're going to sell in the Southwest or Florida or New York City, they better find another name for those parts of the country." And that started it. And I originally started them to fish with, and then I did like the walking stick, which was in 1966. And how do I remember? Because my girlfriend had given me kind of an ultimatum: get a real job, and if you want to get married next year in '67. So that's how I know. And I was still hanging around racetracks and bookie joints at the time, doing okay. And I kind of like that lifestyle, but I thought at the time, hey, this thing called OTB is going to open next year where you can make off-track bets. So maybe I can still keep my lifestyle and keep her happy. But I applied at the phone company and they hired me, and I retired 12 years ago now. But it's all been fun. They've inadvertently become collectibles. I still fish some of my beetles, ants, and other than that, I do tie some regular flies. I love clink hammers, and I tie my own spinners. Sometimes a few bead heads for the 1% of the time I may fish underwater, but they've just become collectible. I've never created a site for myself. I've never written my own book, although people ask me to do so. I just don't care about writing how-to articles. I love the back page stuff like Nick Lyons used to write, and I miss all the John Tainerfoot type stories and Ben Hur Lampman and fellows like that. So now there's John Gierach.
Tie in modern-looking realistic flies, but you've done it for 15 years.
They call me the grandfather of modern realistic tying, although people like Lewis Reed, Charles Kellman, who were also lure makers, used little carved bodies and feathers and stuff. And as far back as I think in the Chubb catalog, I think it was 1809, there's a very realistic looking mayfly that used fish scales for wings, had extended body, individual legs. And I've been trying to research just where it started and just what you could call a realistic fly. But that one was very realistic. And in John Harrington Keene's book, which was around mid-80s, there was a similar fly, and in it he says that he got that from some unnamed tyer about 3 years before. So it's been around a long time. They were tied, of course, to fish with, as originally mine were. But as you started being asked to tie at different clubs and stuff, they just became collectible, and that's where it is now. There's a lot of people now that have taken up realistic tying, some just for show, some for fishing, and the argument has always been just what is a realistic fly, and it always should be something you could still fish if you wanted to pay, say, $600 for something like this praying mantis and fish with it. Why I tied the mantis, I don't know, just as a lark, just to see if it could be done. I never thought I'd tie another one.
How many of those have you tied?
About 130. Paul Smukler once said, you ought to limit how many you tie, maybe 100. And I said, how about 150, thinking I'd never get past 10. And it appeared in a book called The Art of the Trout Fly in I think it was 88, and I got a call from a fellow in somewhere in Chicago, and they're a pain in the neck to tie. I spend about 23 hours on one. Each front leg, there's 7 separate ties twice. They're a hackle stem that I leave some barbs on, trim one, leave one, trim one, leave one, and I tie a little bit of monofilament over each joint just to make sure they don't dry out and fall off. And then I tie biots and barbs of turkey wing quills that have been dyed olive and brown to both sides. And the head takes a little time and the other legs. And I'm not a fast tyer. People that tie a dozen flies an hour, I'd probably tie 3 an hour. So you got to figure that in, you know. But it's fun. It pays for the trips. People don't pay to come and tie the show, usually. So it's nice to cover all these travel and room and food expenses, so that's why I still do it.
Advice for somebody who might see one of your patterns and want to try it?
Well, I love it when somebody wants to tie one of mine, because there isn't a fly I tie that I don't feel could not be improved on. I learn stuff myself just by watching other people. Not in realistics, but I'm kind of away from regular tying. So when somebody's doing a wood duck wing, like my friend Dave Grant, I'll watch them, just in case I want to tie some of those. But when you got a guy that's an expert at that, you don't need to tie them, so I can concentrate on this. I write occasional articles. I visit some of the sites on there. I'm always glad to see young people get into it. I gave a class at the museum in Catskill last June, and the young man, I think he's 15, maybe 16, showed him how to tie the ladybug, mosquito, some other flies, and he entered the fly in a contest and won, along with a contract to produce flies for one of the fly companies. So I was pretty proud of him. I love it when someone makes a praying mantis. I'm always interested to see their take on it. The internet, and I've said this before, is a wonderful tool for people. It cuts the learning curve down by years. And yet, a lot of my fun was sitting down in my finished basement back room where I had my original tying desk, materials, which is now so crowded I can't even fit in it. I tie upstairs. I can remember sitting there, not even realizing the time going by, and all of a sudden the sun is spilling through the basement window onto the floor, and the birds are chirping, and it's morning already. And I think that discovery, that experimentation is kind of gone quite a bit, because everything you need to know is on the internet and at the shows. When I started tying, there were no shows that I knew of, a few club dates. And if someone gave you a fly, you didn't ask for a signature, you just wanted it as a model for your own flies. These were regular flies back then. Thanks to the shows, though, I eventually had read books and learned of famous guys in this, the Ernie Schwieberts and Gary LaFontaines and Paul Jorgensen, and became friends with all of them. And it just was always enjoyable for me to sit and hear the stories they told. When I was in high school and college, I wanted to be a writer, to work on a newspaper, or write articles. And that never happened until I wrote a column for several years in the mid-'80s for Fly Tire magazine. So it all led back to what my original dream of life was. It's been a great trip. I may only look 71, but I'm 72. It's been fun. You never stop learning in this business. I do find that because they take so long, I fish less, which I don't really like. I'm always behind on somebody that wants a fly. In the beginning, I didn't want to sell them because it means I'd have to take a couple of weeks vacation to tie a few for wherever I was going next. And I was a troubleshooter for New York Tel and eventually Verizon until I retired. So if I wanted to make money, I'd stay home and work the weekend on overtime. To get back to it, the fellow from Chicago called when he saw the fly, the praying mantis, in the Art of the Trout Fly, and wanted to know if I'd sell him one, and I really didn't want to. And I said, well, they're $125. And he said, good, send me two. And I said, oh boy, I put my foot in my mouth this time. And then I went down to tie at the Theodore Gordon's down at the Rytown Hilton. Larry Solomon invited me down. And I raised them to 200, and I got 16 orders. And so the following year I raised them to 300, not because I was greedy, but because I hate to tie the darn things. It takes so much time. And when I say it takes me 23 hours, I mean it takes me a week, because I can't sit more than a couple hours at a time. And the big problem is, once you get up for a 5-minute break, it turns into a several-hour break. So I'm as Pogo the Possum once said, I have met the enemy and he is me. But I do well with what I do. I enjoy the people I've met, the friends I've made, the people that invite me to waters I'd never be able to fish if I didn't have this little bit of notoriety. I'm always surprised that the overseas people knew of me. I once joked with Paul Willock when I bought some of his flies. The first one to buy some of his flies over in England on the internet, and he asked me. He called me on the phone. He emailed me and asked for my number.
You're my friend.
And he says, "Are you the Bob Mead?" I wasn't sure what he meant by that. And he says, "What do you want with my flies?" When I said, "Yeah, I guess I am." And I said, well, kidding him, I said, "Paul, I'm going to sign a card with my name on it and charge $100 for them. They're so good." And he didn't know what to say for a minute. I said, "Paul, I'm kidding." He tied some fantastic flies. So Scott Stryker now is another new fella that ties wonderful big flies. He's gotten into some realistics. He's an amazing wood carver, and he's really taken off. Scott Cesari, Bill Blackstone out in California, wonderful man. Just I've only met him once, but we've corresponded, and he's just a lovely guy. You know, I just love the people I've met. Once you retire from work, I drive around now and I see a bucket truck, and I don't know anybody I see anymore. They're all retired. So all my friends seem to be fly fishermen, fly tires, and the guys that run the shows like Steve Starantino here or Chuck Ferenski at all the big shows, the fly fishing shows. And it's been a blast. I just really enjoy it. I tie about 44 different realistic flies, but some of them I haven't tied in maybe 15 years. My middle name is Procrastinator, and when Judith Dunham had asked me to write a chapter and send her a mantis for her book, The Heart of the Trout Fly, I took my time and waited forever, and before my wife and I took a couple-week trip to Florida, I mailed it out. And this was before I had an answering machine or anything. And when I come home, the phone was ringing off the off the wall. I'd sent her a female and a male in a big dome, and like an idiot, glued some gravel and some small pebbles in. And even though it was marked fragile glass and do not throw and everything else all over it, she wasn't home. The guy threw it over the fence. The glass broke. It broke one leg off of one and two legs off the other. And she was calling as I entered the house for about the 20th time, telling me she needed another one in 3 days. She was holding up the publisher. She was holding up the photographer. And I had the first one I tied, which was out of proportion a little bit, which I wanted to keep. And I had the second one I ever tied, not knowing they were going to blow it up this big, and you could see every misturn of thread I had on it. Darn thing. But it was so different at the time that she called me again on Easter Sunday and said, "Bob, buy a copy of the New York Times if you don't get it." Well, I'm a country boy. I live in New York City, and I never read the New York Times, although Peter Bodo of the New York Times did interview me one time and send me a copy of it. So I bought it, and she says, "You're the only one they singled out in the book review of it in the New York Times." So of course I had to go buy as many copies of the New York Times as I could. And I thought it funny that the guy obviously knew nothing about fly tying, because Lee Wolf was in there, Paul Jorgensen was in there, Paul Smoopler was in there, the Deddies were in there, and it was so strange that he singled me out.
That's
like
such
I say.
unique pieces that you made.
Yeah, he made some comment that it belonged in Museum of Natural History, and since then, this is how it's gone. Could I have turned it into a business? Yeah, but I retired not to work. I want to do this as an enjoyment, as a hobby. I still want time for fishing. Back then, I still found the time to coach my kids, be the commissioner of the Little League, take them on, because I did work so much overtime, I took them on a lot of really nice vacations, like around the country, Grand Canyon, all that stuff, to Disneyland. And so when we did take a vacation, it was great. When the kids were young, they tied, but they haven't tied since. My son does fish with me occasionally, although he's down in the city. He's a film editor down there. And I'm hoping the grandsons will take it up. So I've got two, and I can't wait till I can get them on the stream.
That's awesome, Bob. Thank you so much.
Oh, so much. So nice to meet you. You're a gentleman.
Thank you so much.
It's been fun talking with you, and I'm glad you like my set of leg, but cement. But I'd like to use natural materials because it ties back into regular time.
Your flies, we were talking earlier. You're not.
Reedaville Apparel. Need some new foul weather gear for those chilly spring mornings? The Dock Shop is loaded up with Grundens and Stormer in a variety of styles and sizes. Ladies, we've got you covered as well with spring apparel and the newest designs of coastal jewelry, bags, and accessories. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, Connecticut. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Alliance. We are an industry leader in coordinating transportation for large events such as corporate roadshows, conferences, and special events. Our team of experts understands the dynamics and logistics of high-pressure situations and complex arrangements, all within a rapidly changing environment. Since 1999, we have added charter jets, event management, and personal protection to our range of services. Mention this ad for $25 off your next round-trip reservation. Alliance and you. Together, we can achieve the extraordinary. 855-546-6996 or alliancelimo.com.
It's Lots of Characters, specializing in children's birthday parties with your child's favorite characters. When you want to party hardy, when you need to celebrate, call us, we won't be late. We help create lasting memories for you and your child on their special day. Call us at 203-590-1791 or visit our website at lotsofcharacters.org for more information and to see our party packages. Lots of Characters, 203-590-1791 or online at lotsofcharacters.org.
This is Sig Hansen from Deadliest Catch. You're listening to Yankee Fisherman on HANradio.com.
Welcome back to Yankee Fisherman, presented by the Dock Shop on HANradio.com. John Kovach with you on this Thursday. We are joined on the phone by Michael Escala of the Dock Shop, who has some big news that's going to come down Saturday. Michael, how you been?
I'm doing good, John. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well. So we've got big news.
We do. The Dock Shop is moving to Westport. Well, not moving, but we're opening another location.
And this is on Riverside Drive, next to the Black Duck and All Seasons Boatworks, correct?
Correct. Riverside Avenue, 609, right next to the Black Duck and in front of All Seasons Marine. All Seasons, it's a good fit for us. All Seasons is a regulator and pursuit dealer, so we're right in our wheelhouse.
Now, what are you going to have in this new location? Is it going to be similar to Darien?
It is. It's going to be similar, but different. We're going to kind of flip-flop what we're doing. Darien is a nautical accessory store, boutique that sells fishing tackle and marine supplies. In Westport, we're going to be a bait and tackle shop, marine supply store that supports the boutique product as well.
And you've been busy setting that up. I stopped by yesterday, and it's shaping up nice. It's really a great space.
It is. It's bright. It's wide open. It gives us room to do some things that we couldn't in Darien, like sell bait, and really open up our fishing tackle room.
That excites me, and I see you've got a lot of saltwater stuff in there already. It's starting to come together. Big celebration Saturday. We're going to be there. What can you tell the listeners to expect when they stop by Saturday?
Saturday is going to be our introduction. We're opening the doors. We've got some special guests coming. We're going to do some door prizes. Every guest that comes to visit will get a raffle ticket that we'll pull. We're giving away 2 chartered fishing excursions, a bunch of other tackle-related items and nautical-themed items. Our big celebrity, we've got Captain Jack coming in, who will be meeting and greeting everyone and taking pictures with anyone who wants, especially the kids. It's overall just going to be a really fun day. We're doing it from 10 to 3 Saturday.
And again, this sits back from Riverside Avenue. So where should people park?
Well, on the weekends, the permitting is lifted. So there's the parking lot where we are in the Black Duck, and there's street parking surrounding the entire facility, as well as another parking lot right under I-95, which is right adjacent to our lot as well.
Yeah, it's very easy to get to. It's right off of exit 17. If you're going south, you have to loop around, turn right, and take the left. If you're going north, just get off, keep going straight, and it's right in front of you. It's a tremendous opportunity for the dock shop to increase its involvement in angling, and I salute you for taking this step.
Well, we appreciate that. We feel strongly about it. We love, especially to build the whole recreation for recreational fishing. We get involved with the kids and everyone else. We specialize in light tackle inshore, but now moving into this larger space and being in Westport, we'll be able to expand. You'll see some freshwater stuff in there, as well as some offshore things as well.
Very cool. Cannot wait. And hopefully you'll have some time Saturday to sit down with us and let's talk about the future of the newest location of the dock shop.
Absolutely. We'll make sure of it, John. We're looking forward to seeing you there.
Sounds great. Guys, we're going to step out after this. Thank Michael LaScala. Let him get back to getting ready for the grand opening. Saturday, 10 a.m., 609 Riverside Avenue in Westport. New location for the dock shop. We'll be there. Michael LaScala, thanks for joining us. You're listening to Yankee Fisherman, presented by the dock shop on HANradio.com, streaming on Hersam Acorn Network. Spring is finally in the air, and our favorite season is upon us. The dock shop is all geared up with a great selection of fishing tackle, custom fishing rods, and all the latest accessories to replenish your tackle box. The dock shop has also just brought out the newest spring fashion apparel from Montauk Tackle, Altered Latitudes, Kaylee Smith, and Margaritaville Apparel. Need some new foul weather gear for those chilly spring mornings? The dock shop is loaded up with Grundens and Stormer in a variety of styles and sizes. Ladies, we've got you covered as well with spring apparel and the newest designs of coastal jewelry, bags, and accessories. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, Connecticut. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Healthy, confident smiles begin at Stratford Orthodontics.
Conveniently located on Main Street, we are Stratford's hometown orthodontist. We offer the latest in orthodontic technology, including Damon braces and Invisalign. We always accept new patients. Call today to schedule a complimentary consultation. 203-375-8332. Stratford Orthodontics, 2499 Main Street, Stratford. 203-375-8332. And online at stratfordsmile.com.
Ever wonder why a story becomes news? Find out each Friday on Behind the News on HANradio.com. We'll bring in the newsmakers from around Connecticut and the journalists who cover them. Who is making the news? What did they do? Where did it happen? When and how did that story unfold? Find out on Behind the News, hosted by Kate Chaplinsky, John Kovach, and myself, Josh Fisher. Fridays at noon on HANradio.com.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com.
Welcome back to Yankee Fisherman. John Kovach with you on this Thursday. Thanks again to Michael Lascala from the Dock Shop. We will be there to help them open up Saturday. We're going to be there 10 to 1 because we're doing a lacrosse game at Fairfield University at 4 o'clock. We've got to set up for that. But we're going to be there talking to people, taping some segments, getting a show together, probably playing some old segments, and just welcoming them to that new location in Westport. Now we're going to go back to the Crossroads Angling Auction in Bud Lake, New Jersey. Another interview I taped with the tire. This Scott Stryker of Stryker's Custom Flies, and you're going to watch him tie a stone fly that he really raves about that was just featured in Fly Tire magazine. Let's play that interview, guys.
John Kovach, Yankee Fisherman, at the Crossroads Angling Auction Tackle Show, Day 2. We're with Scott Stryker of Stryker's Custom Flies. Scott is going to demonstrate for us Stryker's Totally Stoned, just featured in Fly Tire magazine. And this came out of your experience as a guide on the Ausable?
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Well, working up on the Ausable guiding for about 12 years, I noticed there was a lot of stone flies, a lot of big stone flies, and the bigger fish weren't always eager to chase down a skittering stimulator across the surface. So I needed something that we could slow down a little bit more for them, and by slowing it down, it was going to essentially give them a better look at a fly, so the fly had to look a little bit more realistic. So
and this is a foam body that you're getting a realistic look out of.
This is a foam body fly.
Tires might not see how you can do that.
I use silicone legs from Jason Sweden. Very durable. They're silicone. They got a lot of movement to them. And more importantly, they don't spook the fish, which is generally a problem when you're tying realistic flies. Let's go ahead and finish this up. I have the body started here on my extended body pin. Just going to finish up a few more of these body segments here.
Go ahead and tie, and then we'll talk about the process. I'll let you focus on tying. And what you've done there is you started a body and you've now wrapped it around the hook with an underbody on it with the antennae and the legs already tied to the hook. So this is a multi-step process we're seeing here.
Right. I already had the legs and the antennas pre-attached to the hook just to make it easier.
And a lot of this you can, and you are doing ahead of time in terms of cutting segments of body and legs, etc.
Right. I'll pre-cut all the bodies in one sitting and sit down and tie a bunch of them up.
Do you take outside work in for making ferrules?
Then I'll sit and pre-attach all the legs and the antennas. Now, generally what I do here is I use a little super glue. Glue this body to the hook. Glue the two pieces together. But when you forget your super glue at home, that tends to be a problem. So we're just gonna go ahead and finish off the fly the way I would normally do.
Could, in theory, go back and glue the wraps later?
You could. It'd just be a little bit more difficult with the hair on it. However, that is possible.
What was jamming? Oh,
What would you like me to tell you?
Actually, what we will do is just throw a little head cement in here just to help.
You can't charge it, right?
But I would imagine keeping the eye clear is particularly important here with all that foam and head cement up there. It's a great bobbin, by the way.
It's a very good bobbin. I'd be lost without it.
Thank you. I will check out your site.
What we want to do here, we have a small clump of deer hair. Clean out all the under fur. Take one of my pre-cut stonefly wings. Lay that over. With a couple wraps and just pinch down with my thumb before I cinch that down. And when I do that, that'll help flare that hair out to each side.
You have any advice for the tyer who struggles with using deer hair? You've got a lot of deer hair patterns here,
Practice.
both salt and fresh.
Practice, practice, practice.
Now, how long have you been tying, Scott?
I've been tying a little over 30 years now.
How long have you been tying the Strikers Totally Stoned?
This is a pattern I've been working on for several years, and it's been popularized in about the last year or so.
And what I really liked about what jumped out at me about it is to see the underside and how segmented it looks and how much it sells being a living stonefly from underneath. And I don't know that you would get that from anything other than this foam.
We'll show you that in a minute. Just want to advance forward to the next head section. Give that a little squeeze. Put this top little piece on. Half inches here. Tie that off. And like I said, if we had our super glue, I'll coat these threads and coat the underbody. Give all the threads a good coating. Make it a little bit more durable. And there you have it. That's a silhouette that no fish can refuse. When you got those smart fish triggering in on the stoneflies and they don't want to go crazy chasing a stimulator, You just put one of these on, fish it real slow, slight little twitches, and that'll seal the deal with the bigger fish.
And that'll stay totally on the surface because of the use of the foam?
That will float right in the surface film, give a nice perfect silhouette for that fish.
And how about the more realistic? How did you get into tying the realistic stoneflies that we have over here?
The realistics I started getting into when I met Bob Mead back in early 2000. He's well known for doing his realistic flies. And I have this one here that was just featured on the cover of Fly Tire magazine, the spring of 2015 issue. This is a fly that typically takes about 12 hours to tie. If you happen to be lucky enough to have the article, I have very detailed instructions. And although lengthy and time-consuming, it is pretty straightforward and simple. Pretty much anybody with some decent tying skills could tackle that. And
they've got a lot of deer hair and...
use a lot of deer hair. I do everything from musky flies and all sorts of shapes and sizes. It's big bunker flies for bass.
That one I love. That's a striper fly?
When the stripers are fishing, when the stripers are hitting the big bunker flies in the early spring, this is the fly you want to have.
Just beautiful stuff, and it's all deer hair. And
that's all deer hair. This is a pattern developed by Bob Popovics. It's called his Beast Fly. This is tied on a piece of mono extension. And you'll tie that up on the mono extension first, then you'll attach it to the hook to finish it off. And that's just a series of hollow ties.
That's just beautiful stuff. You can almost see, if it doesn't translate to the camera, it almost looks like a skeleton underneath that. As that gets wet, it's just going to give the fish body.
Right,
it's just going to really match the profile of a swimming bunker, and a good-sized bunker at that.
It's going to match the profile. It's very translucent, which means it'll shed water quickly, which makes it easier to cast. Plus, it allows for breathability. That'll pulsate and undulate in the water, driving those fish nuts.
Beautiful stuff. Scott, how can people see your work?
People could see my work. I'm on Facebook under Strikers Custom Flies and Lures. I also have a website, strikerscustomflies.com.
Scott Stryker of the Adirondacks in New Jersey, thanks for joining us on Yankee Fisherman.
Thank you.
Presented by the
Appreciate
Dock
it.
Shop. Spring is finally in the air, and our favorite season is upon us. The Dock Shop is all geared up with a great selection of fishing tackle, custom fishing rods, and all the latest accessories to replenish your tackle box. The Dock Shop has also just brought out the newest spring fashion apparel from Montauk Tackle, Altered Latitudes, Kaylee Smith, and Margaritaville Apparel. Need some new foul weather gear for those chilly spring mornings? The Dock Shop is loaded up with Grundens and Stormer in a variety of styles and sizes. Ladies, we've got you covered as well, with spring apparel and the newest designs of coastal jewelry, bags, and accessories. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, Connecticut. Visit us at dockshop.com.
This year, 3,000 Connecticut women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. Hersam Acorn is a proud sponsor of the Komen, Connecticut Race for the Cure. Help make an impact in the local fight against breast cancer by joining us on May 9th in Westport at Sherwood Island. With your help, Komen, Connecticut invests in local breast cancer programs, helping local women beat breast cancer. Visit KomenCT.org to register, volunteer, or donate today. We race for Connecticut. Why will you race?
Does advertising on HANradio.com work? Just ask Coastal Orthopedics. They ran spots with us, and within 24 hours they had 21 walk-ins and 8 calls to their new immediate care center. To advertise on HANradio.com, call 203-417-5199 and ask for Marianne Hersam.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com.
Welcome back to Yankee Fisherman, presented by the Dock Shop on HANradio.com. John Kovach with you on this Thursday afternoon, coming up on the end of another show. Last week we had Leon Sylvester on talking about the Housatonic River cleanup. They did a great job. Front page of this week's Shelton Herald has a story and some photos. And what bugs me is you see the size of the trash that's being hauled out of the river in this cleanup. I mean, truck tires and boats full of stuff, and just, we shouldn't have to do this. You're going to have to, but you really shouldn't have to do this. And pick up your line, too. I've seen a lot of stuff about guys picking up line that's being disposed of, garbage that's being left. Can we please clean up? A couple of other organized cleanups. 'Tis the season. Last weekend, Miannis chapter at TU planted 1,000 linear feet. They fixed the stream bank. 75 volunteers planted 685 native trees and bushes. Really repaired the habitat there along the Norwalk River. They've got a big event coming up at Merwin Meadows on May 9th. We are going to be there. We're also going to talk about that on next week's show. The Farmington River Anglers Association had their big cleanup. They removed 25 tires from the Farmington River. I'm just wondering how anybody gets any damn place because there's so many tires in the river. I don't get. Somebody help me out. Somebody in the studio right now help me out with that. No, I get a lot of shrugs. Why are all the tires in the river?
Well, how do they get the tires to the river? Presumably you have to have tires on your car.
There's one place, actually, we were talking about it at State Council at TU, where it's near the transfer station, and they always pull like dozens of tires out, and the transfer station doesn't take tires, so they assume that when guys get turned away at the transfer station, they just stop and throw them in the river off of the bridge.
That's a very socially responsible thing to do.
Isn't it? Yeah, seems it. And that's why we have cleanups like the one Leon Sylvester was behind at the Housatonic, and thank everybody who volunteered for that, and the ones that Farmington River Anglers Association and Miannis TU did. Just great stuff there. Couple of events coming up, and it's a guest that we're going to have on. John Field of Weston has written a book. I met him up at First Cast up at the Catskill Fly Fishing Center Museum, and he's published a book, Fly Casting Finesse. It's out in stores. He's got some local events coming up. He is going to be at the Barnes & Noble in Westport, and that is on the Post Road, 1076 Post Road East, almost into Southport, on May 7th at 7 o'clock. So John Field with his book, Fly Casting Finesse. May 7th, he's going to be at Barnes & Noble in Westport. May 16th, he's doing a casting demo at the Complete Angler, 541 Post Road in Darien. And June 1st, he will be at the New City Trout Unlimited meeting. That's at the Orvis Retail Store at 489 5th Avenue in New York. And this Stratford Bait and Tackle posted this online. Gary Lucas this week weighed in a 7.32 pound rainbow trout from the Pequannock River. I mean, that's a big trout. That is a big trout. That is going to do it for Yankee Fisherman for this week on HANradio.com. Come see us Saturday down at the new location of the Dock Shop, the second location of the Dock Shop. Darien will be there. We'll be at 609 Riverside Avenue in Westport. Tomorrow, the full run of shows on HANradio.com. Drive with Denise at 10. Coffee break at 11. Behind the News at 12. Radio Arts and Leisure at 1. Stay tuned after we wrap up for Kate Czaplinski with more headlines. Till next week, tight lines.
Hersam, Acorn, and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.
Yankee Fisherman is presented by the Dock Shop. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Want to get in touch with HAN Radio? You can find us on Twitter at Hersam Radio, on Facebook at Hersam Acorn Radio, or email us at radio@hersamacorn.com.
I'm Kate Chaplinsky with your HAN News Update. A key legislative panel broke Wednesday with Governor Daniel P. Malloy by recommending a plan that bolsters state tax and fee receipts by more than $1.8 billion over the next 2 fiscal years, including more than $540 million in new income taxes on the wealthy and an overhaul of the sales tax. The Connecticut Mirror reports the package, approved on a party line vote by the Democrat-controlled Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, includes about $1.3 billion in tax increases, while also canceling or delaying nearly $500 million in tax cuts scheduled to begin in the coming biennium. The new plan also would impose a significant new tax increases on corporations and hospitals and would authorize the Connecticut Lottery to launch Keno in bars and restaurants. The revenue proposal exacerbates growing tension between Malloy and his fellow Democrats in the General Assembly's majority. The governor, who campaigned on a pledge not to increase taxes despite big deficit projections for the 2015-16 and 2016-17 years, proposed a net tax hike of $360 million in the 2-year budget he submitted in February. But he also recommended hundreds of millions of dollars in cuts to social services, reductions the Appropriations Committee largely restored last week. In other news, a New Haven man was killed and 2 others were injured in a head-on crash early this morning on I-95 in Brantford. 69-year-old Peter Hall of Lawrence Street in New Haven was pronounced dead at the scene, according to state police. Hall was traveling the wrong way, southbound in the northbound lanes of I-95 near exit 54, when he slammed into another vehicle, according to state police. The other driver, Blair Kerr, 43 years old of Bridgeport, suffered minor injuries, but the passenger in his truck, who was 24-year-old Frank Papa of Arizona, was seriously injured and was transported by ambulance to Yale New Haven Hospital. The crash occurred around 3 in the morning, and the northbound side of the highway was closed between exits 54 and 55 for nearly 3 hours. In Milford, a stack of printed flyers with the message "White Lives Matter" has been found in a North Milford neighborhood. The flyers, found on Herbert Street in the upscale Great River neighborhood, are a reference to the slogan "Black Lives Matter," used by groups responding to police violence against young black men, and particularly incidents in Ferguson, Staten Island, North Charleston, South Carolina, and most recently in Baltimore. The flyers found Tuesday make reference to recent riots, presumably in Baltimore, and urge people to visit the website of a self-proclaimed white nationalist organization based in Mississippi. Milford police are investigating the flyers. American Idol contestant and Connecticut native Nick Fradiani has made it to the Final Four of American Idol. He will return to his hometown Guilford on Friday, as will the other top 4 contestants on the show. A 3 o'clock in the afternoon parade to the Guilford Green is planned, followed by a concert at 4. He will be performing with his Beach Avenue band, which hails from Milford, and the other contestants will also perform. It is currently 61 degrees and sunny in Shelton. HAN News Time is 2:04.
Hersam, Acorn, and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.